1. Being for itself and being in itself. What are being for itself and being in itself? The being for itself is the existence that nullifies cognize other things. It is the being that is conscious of other beings, and that thinks about something. A human being gives meaning to the world, and, in the very act of being conscious of every existence, transforms that existence into being in itself. The being in itself, on the other hand, is nothingness. It does not become conscious of other things, it simply exists as it is. It exists solely as being in itself, and cannot transform the existences of the world into nothingness. 2. When the being for itself cognize something, the being in itself becomes nothingness. Then, what is nothingness? The moment something is made conscious, that very existence becomes nothing, it is nullified. That existence turns into being in itself, and becomes part of the nothingness generated by the being for itself. In other words, the moment a being for itself, a person becomes conscious of something, that thing becomes nothingness, and its meaning is determined by the being for itself. Likewise, one person's body becomes being in itself when it is placed within another's consciousness, residing within that person's thoughts. When one being for itself becomes conscious of another being for itself, the one observed is rendered as being in itself. 3. Nullification, nullifying the being in itself. The object in consciousness is nothingness. Now it becomes clear why others are hell. The moment another becomes conscious of me, I cease to exist as my own being for itself, and instead exist as a being in itself within that person's consciousness. I become something within another's world, no longer the being for itself. Who creates meaning in the world? In other words, regardless of my actual existence, I become the version of myself that exists in someone else's mind, an existence defined by another's thought. My meaning and my value then depend on another's perception. According to Sartre, if I exist within another's consciousness, I am reduced to being a being in itself, no longer a being for itself. Who creates meaning and perceives the world on my own terms? Our essence is existence, Sartre's value judgment. This follows from the fundamental premise of Sartre's thought. For Sartre, the essence of a human being is that of the being for itself, a subject who creates meaning in the world, makes choices, and struggles. Any characteristics of mere being in itself that contradict this subjectivity are completely excluded from what is valuable. Value is granted solely to the being for itself. That generates meaning, while those humans who become being in itself merely objects elicit strong aversion. 5. Each of us is an essence, yet the moment we become objects, we become merely appendages of another existence. Sartre stated that the being for itself is constantly conscious of something other than itself. This being for itself creates meaning from the innumerable being in itself in the world, and its own existence serves as the complete foundation of its world. It is the being that assigns meaning to the phenomena it perceives, judges facts and values, and ultimately incorporates the being in itself into the world of the being for itself. 6. Hell is other people. Each individual is a being for itself, a subject who creates meaning for the phenomena of the world. In other words, the very fact that there is an obstacle to doing something indicates the presence of an intention to act. As long as even one being for itself creates meaning, it becomes the source of that world. Other people are also beings for itself, and if I exist within another's consciousness, I become merely a component within that person's world of meaning. In a world where another determines meaning, I become just one of its parts.